You know, back at the start, I was a good designer, but I was a terrible business person. You know, it's how you see yourself. And once you start seeing yourself differently, and not just as this little designer or like a logo designer, that's whenever everything changed for me. So we're starting to really get into personal brands. And there's this saying, you know, we don't just build brands, but we build people along with it.
Welcome to Click, Cry, Repeat. This is not another marketing podcast. It's a podcast about the people doing marketing jobs. I'm Peter Craven.
And I'm Ashley Watson. Think of it as your virtual monthly therapy couch. We're talking about the wins, the wounds, and the why the hell are we doing this moment. Today's guest is Kris Byers.
Hi, Kris.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me along.
Thank you.
Good to see you. We'll jump straight in. So, as you know, we're starting with our Meet the Marketer segment. So, it's a couple of quick-fire questions, which me and Ash have decided in advance what we'll ask you. So number one, what was your favourite cartoon when you were growing up?
Definitely He-Man. I loved He-Man, Skeletor. And it was actually my daughter's first words. She does a really good Skeletor impression.
Very good.
So yeah, and the movie's actually being remade in the summer, which is pretty cool. So yeah, big He-Man.
All that 80s nostalgia, cartoon stuff's coming back, isn't it? Yeah, it's good.
Kris, if you could relive any 24-hour period, what would it be?
Wow. Probably going to Australia. I went out to Oz. It's really funny. I went out with my best mate and travelled around for a year, done the backpacking thing. And we're at the airport and everybody's crying, all the families and all my dad and mum. And I was sitting going like, should I be crying or should I be happy here? So yeah, just to get out of Belfast and see the big world for the first time, those 24 hours travelling, going through Singapore, you know, it was just like having new wings.
It's the anticipation, isn't it, of what lies ahead almost?
Absolutely. Crocodiles and
the fear of the spiders?
All of them.
Are you arriving in the airport 3 hours before the flight or a run to the gate?
Definitely 3 hours.
Are you?
But there was one time I missed it. I was travelling back from London and I went up and I said, I think I've missed my flight by half an hour. And she looked at it and she goes, Mr. Byers, you've missed it by 3 days.
That's
but
a big miss.
Apart from that there, I'm usually on time.
Yeah. You only take one of those misses to change your approach a little bit.
You don't do that again.
Okay.
Kris, what's the favourite job you've ever had?
It's actually the one I'm in now. You know, it's a dream job, what I do. You know, helping people bring their visions to life and be creative. And yeah, it's just that imagination, playing with that there every day and just seeing people. It's the potential, you know, helping people work. So that's definitely, I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's nice to hear.
That's good, yeah. That's good.
But what's really good with our partnership is that I'm the big crazy squirrel ideas in the clouds and he's the sensible day-to-day strategy, you know, and that really marries because one without the other, it's a bit of mayhem. We're working with this girl out in Hawaii actually at the moment. So we've been rebranding her, helping her with a bit of digital, email marketing, and she sent us a couple over, which is great. And we're planning a house swap, so we're going to be going over for Christmas over to Hawaii and she's going to come over to Ireland.
That leads us quite nicely in, I suppose, to the start of the conversation. You know, in the planning for this, we were talking about, you know, horrible brands is what, 4 or 5 years now you've been doing that?
4 years, yeah.
Before that, you know, you spent sort of 16 years working as a freelance graphic designer. So, what's been the biggest lesson in making that shift from being the freelance solo operator to now trying to build an agency, if you like, and run that business?
I think it's seeing yourself as a business person. You know, back at the start, I was a good designer, but I was a terrible business person. And you're sitting waiting for the phone to ring, going, why is there no business? And that's the thing, it's actually getting out and seeing yourself as that person that leads the company.
Okay, and you talked about some of the sort of mentoring and coaching that you've had. How quickly did you sort of recognise that you needed to do some of that with Annette and those other people that you're working with? Yeah,
well, it was back just around lockdown time. It just felt like it was Groundhog Day, you know, getting stuck in the rut, doing the same thing over and over, doing it for 25 years. And I just kind of felt, must be more to this. I knew there was more in me, but I just didn't know how to get it out. So I started investing in mentors and people to help me, you know, fulfill my potential. Yeah. And whenever you've done that, then you've seen, it was all in your head. You know, it's how you see yourself. And once you start seeing yourself differently, and not just as this little designer or like a logo designer, and seeing yourself that you can really make a big difference, that's whenever everything changed for me.
And how does your day look differently now as a business owner than it did when you were working freelance?
I'm not behind the computer as much. And getting in front of the camera, this is pretty new to me, but it's exciting and it's scary at the same time. So it's more than just kind of doing the work. It's presenting the work and finding the work and making those relationships.
There's an element, isn't there, as well, of, you know, creatives, I think, whether it's graphics or video or whatever sort of creative discipline, I think, you know, we tend to take the work we do very personally. Yeah. And, you know, any request for edits or a change in direction is almost feels like somebody stabs you sometimes, you know, because you're like, I put my heart and soul into that. So how throughout the whole experience, I suppose, of being the freelance designer and your experience was horrible, how did you get to the mindset, you know, that almost like that your work doesn't define you sort of element?
I think when I realised that most of it's subjective, and, you know, whenever I design things that are fundamentally correct and you get the base right, then it's just, you know, colours, it's up to the client's, you know, taste really. But as long as it's fit for purpose, then I'm cool with it now. So I'm not this precious designer I used to be.
And that's, I think every designer starts off like that, don't they? And then moves through that, realize that everything's sort of a more collaborative process.
Yeah, it's when you stop designing for your own portfolio and you design for that problem. So we're not designing for the clients, we're designing and solving problems for their market and their audience.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's probably what makes the difference between having once been a graphic designer to now being a business owner and having that sort of marketing mindset and outlook, is that you are solving problems and not just doing what the client has asked for.
Yeah. And I think I can relate as a business owner now, because before, you know, I'm more aware of budget and where to spend the client's money and where to invest, because I've been through that process myself. So I've got a bit more empathy for people that come to work with us.
What type of client work is it that you particularly enjoy doing?
Mostly storytelling and that brand piece, you know, really bringing the true essence of the person out. So we're starting to really get into personal brands. And there's this saying, you know, we don't just build brands, but we build people along with it. Because what I noticed was we create this future vision, this big identity, and give it to the client. And we know that that's right for them, but they're just not ready to step in. So there's a bit of a growth for them to become that future identity. And that's really rewarding.
Yeah.
And there is an element, I think, as well, back to your point earlier, Ash, I think sometimes there can be a temptation to just do what the client asks you to do, whereas I think sometimes you're seen as a more valuable partner whenever you can, not push back's maybe the wrong word, but whenever you can question that and you can ask, you know, well, why are you making that decision? Where are the foundations for it that helps you then decide, actually, I think going this way might be a better approach? That
definitely comes from experience. I was the yes man. yeah. Agreeing to everything just to get it over the line whenever I was a junior. But now, you know, whenever you've got a bit more authority and you've got that wisdom and experience that you do know what works and there's best practice. And whenever you talk with confidence, then the clients listen and, you know, respect you more.
Yeah. Okay. And you've moved as well from freelance designer, so you're in charge of everything, you make every decision, you make every good and bad decision, you have those conversations with yourself all the time around, is this the right thing to do, is it not, you know, the evil people sitting on your shoulder and telling you different things all the time. You've now moved to, you know, you partnered with Aidan. Mm-hmm. How was that process of having a partner now that, first of all, you had the ability to share your thoughts and things with, on somebody to bounce those ideas off, but also just the mechanics of understanding, you know, the mechanics of that relationship and the chemistry?
Absolutely. It's almost like getting married again, you know, because he's coming with the way he used to do things, I have a way to do things, and it's just matching and meeting in the middle. But what's really good with our partnership is that I'm the big crazy squirrel ideas in the clouds, and he's the sensible day-to-day strategy, you know, and that really marries, because one without the other You know,
It's a yin and yang thing.
It's a bit of mayhem. So, yeah.
A lot of people do those. I've never experienced that myself, but you know, speaking to people who entered those sort of co-founder sort of environments, it is that, you know, they have to have different but complementary skills in order for it to really work.
I think as long as your values are aligned and why you're doing it, it's the big why. We've got the big why together. And then, you know, but you don't want another clone of you, or I don't want to be like him. So it's kind of giving yourself this space to be yourself, individual, but pushing forward in the same direction with the business.
Okay. And I mean, about how have you gone about sort of building the team as well around that? You know, when you're hiring, how do you do that values alignment bit? Because that's the most important part when you're taking somebody on.
Yep.
You know, how do you make sure that your values are the same and they're going to be that
Sometimes
good
it is trial and error at times.
Yeah.
And people change and we change, but we use this vivid vision document.
Right.
And it's a 3 to 5 year plan. And we know we're going this direction. And if people are on board, great. And if they're not, then it's not really the right fit for us or for them.
And what are your ambitions for where you take Horrible then?
I really want to go global. You know, we're getting a lot of work over in America. I really want to get some clients in Australia. That would be the dream. But yeah, with the internet, you know, there's no reason why not. So just really finding the right people in the right places.
How do those opportunities in the US and potentially Australia arise for you then? How do you uncover those?
A lot of it's through networks that we're in. We're in these global networks and they're like high end, you know, and the right people are in the right places. We're working with this girl out in Hawaii actually at the moment. Okay. She supplies these coats, these sort of waterproof. It's kind of like like surf jackets. Yeah. But she supplies them to the Navy SEALs out there. Oh, yeah. So we've been rebranding her, helping her with a bit of digital, email marketing, and she sent us a couple over, which is great. Very good. And we're planning a house swap, so we're going to be going over for Christmas over to Hawaii, and she's going to come over to Ireland. So that's where I love this sort of client relationships that become more friends rather than just transactional.
Yeah, well, you can be more honest with people then, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Do you want to, shall we, since we've been talking about building teams and going global, I think it sounds like the right time to sort of ask you about, for our second feature segment, which is called Job or No Job. Mm-hmm. And what we're asking people to tell us is, you know, the hiring process is horrible generally. You know, some people interview really well, and then when they arrive, you're wondering, like, where's the person I interviewed? This isn't really them. So what we've asked in advance, if you could tell us one practical thing you would do during the interview process that would help you understand the kind of person that you were dealing with, leaving aside their skills and qualifications. Yeah. What would you do to really get under the skin of who it was?
I could tell you what I have done.
Okay, well, that'd be great, yeah.
And Aidan's going to kill me here.
Okay.
But so whenever we were talking about partnering up, I had the wee garden office, you know, we're only starting out, and I said, yep, no problem, but you're going to have to get your own desk and bring it in. So he went down to IKEA, bought his desk, brought it up, and I was sitting working away, just watching him try to build this desk. And honestly, it took him about 6 hours. And he was sweating and the screws were everywhere, and but he stuck at it. And I was saying, do you want a hand? Do you want a hand? No, fine. So I knew that sort of resilience, you know, by building a desk that took nearly almost a full day. He got there in the end and it was built better than mine. But yeah, I just knew that was the right guy then, you know, because it's somebody that sticks at it and just doesn't throw it. Don't know if I would be as patient. I'd probably just throw my head up.
No, I think there's something about assembling furniture. I think it can bring out the worst in people sometimes. Yeah. I remember watching my mum and dad assembling furniture when I was a kid and very quickly realising that the best place to be was not in the house.
How many screws did he have left over at the end of it?
I don't know. I didn't count. But saying that there, Katie got a trampoline for Christmas.
Right.
And it took me a full day. The springs were everywhere and I was near going in the bin, but we got there in the end.
It's just sticking with it sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that was good.
About 4 years ago, I went back and was qualified as a hypnotherapist, weirdly enough. Right. Back then, people thought it was nuts, didn't know why. Styles come and go, but that fundamental piece of what makes a good brand, that storytelling piece, it's always there. Someone said, I think it might have been Aidan, he says, you can either dig a hole with a spade or a JCB. And I see the AI as the JCB.
Going back to the conversation then, yeah.
Yeah, so back to one of the things you spoke about earlier, is about how you have transitioned to working rather than just being the yes man and working with personal brands, and that's something that brings you real joy. Why? What is it about those types of businesses and clients that actually...
I think it's getting into the psychology. It's getting deeper. And about 4 years ago, I went back and was qualified as a hypnotherapist, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Back then, people thought it was nuts, didn't know why.
Yeah.
But it was because then I could understand business problems at a deeper level and understand the person, because a lot of people are coming in with a certain problem or think it is, or a challenge, but it's not that. Once we reframe it, we realize that it's something else. So yeah, just to see the person grow as much as just giving them like a brand or a website, you know, it's who's behind it and who's using it. And that's really rewarding.
I mean, hypnotherapy is an interesting one because, you know, there's a guy, Turan Misra, who runs a hypnotherapy business.
Yeah.
And, you know, very often people's only exposure to that sort of thing is the guy who comes into the students' union, you know, makes everybody cluck like a chicken for half an hour, you know. So I mean,
you should see it on a Friday.
Well, I'm assuming that's not the sort of hypnotherapy you're talking about. What kind of insights does that hypnotherapy training sort of give you, that you're able to use them when you're working with
So it's starting to get into self-limiting beliefs that are in your subconscious.
Okay.
And, you know, they're things that you've actually taught yourself and believed.
Yeah.
So whenever you can rewire how you see things and look at things, it's fascinating. But I'm very careful not to tell too many clients that I do hypnotherapy, because they're like, you're gonna cheat me into a logo here. Yeah. So yeah, it's used for good, and it's just to get the deeper level of what they're trying to achieve.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Moving on then, you know, you've been in the graphic designer for 16 years, horrible brands for 4 or 5. You know, 20 years is a lifetime.
You're telling me.
Yeah, it feels like longer than that probably. In that industry, you know, so it's changed hugely from, you know, back in the mid-noughties or whatever it was that you started doing that. How has the job of being that designer and telling that brand story changed, given, you know, the technology that's come along, the fact that, you know, everybody's a graphic designer now if they have a Canva subscription or even if they're using the free one?
Yep.
How accessible that is, the prevalence now and the increasing use over the next number of years of AI image creation and all that sort of stuff. How is the job, in what ways is the job, I suppose, really different now from when it was when you started?
I think it's the tools that have changed. You know, the thinking is quite similar. Well, you know, styles come and go, but that fundamental piece of what makes a good brand, that storytelling piece, it's always there. But I remember starting out as a student, we were using Letraset. I don't know if you can remember that.
I don't.
That's and it was this page with letters, transfers. And you used to have to like scratch an M off and move it over, and a G and a... Okay. Before computers, yeah. And stock images. Yeah. They were in big books. It's Tony Stone books, you called them. And you used to have to write the reference down, phone the guy up, and he'd send you out a negative, and you have to scan it in. So there was no iStock, no Shutterstock stuff. Wow. So just things have moved so quickly.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to the guys on the crew earlier, who are students here at the minute, about I did media studies up in Coleraine, and one of the exercises we had to do in our first year was to shoot and edit a radio interview, and it was all recorded on dictaphones and tapes. And then we had to edit the interview by, you know, taking the tape off and listening to it and going through it with a razor blade. You know, all the blade tools in the digital software now are razor blade for a reason. That's what people used to use, and used to have to slice the tape and then stitch it back together again, and remove the bit of tape that you wanted to cut and put it back together again and insert your gaps and everything.
Definitely showing our age now.
And I was, wow, I mean, that was 1993 I was doing that, you know, and it's amazing to see how far that's
and where it's going now with AI.
Yeah.
There's another shift again.
Do you see all that sort of AI image generation stuff as a threat, an opportunity, or both? Well,
I always see everything as an opportunity. I never see threats. I always look at what's positive there and the possibilities. And I think it's going to separate the good designers from the bad designers, you know, you won't be able to hide as much anymore. So yeah, I'm embracing it. There's a big debate about it, but I just see it as another tool that can get the work done faster and more efficient.
And are you using any AI tools?
We are, yeah. We're using Midjourney. Okay. Actually, we've got a big job there. It was for the British Olympics over in England, and they didn't have the budget for this pitch deck to invest in the photos. So we created a 6-pack image on Midjourney. But there was a couple of 6 fingers going on there.
Yeah, hands are still a
but
problem.
It was enough what they needed for.
Yeah, because we've started using some of the AI video generation tools, and even in the last 12 months, you've seen massive improvements in terms of what it's able to do for you, you know, so I think...
It all comes back to the idea, doesn't it? You need the concept and the actual...
Well, I think that, you know, I think that the tools make it more accessible for people, but at the heart of a great designer or a great videographer or a great marketer is the ability to connect it back to something that matters.
Totally.
And to tell that story effectively, isn't there?
Yeah.
And that's always going to be the case, I think.
Someone said, I think it might have been Aidan, he says you can either dig a hole with a spade or a JCB. They'll get done, you know, and I see the AI as the JCB, but you need to know what the hole's for and, you know, the size of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, yeah. That's
good analogy, isn't it?
It is a good analogy, that one, I like that. I do like that one. Okay, it's time to find out what's in the box, I think.
Oh, I'm really dying to know what's in the box.
So what's in the box was what we've asked every guest to do is to bring along something that was really important to them. Could be personally, could be professionally, could be from they were a child or from 5 minutes ago. Doesn't really matter. And what we want you to do is the item is in the box. None of us know what the item is. And if you could now do the reveal for us, Kris, and tell us what you brought along.
Just hope I don't get arrested for this one.
Okay, I'm liking this already. Yeah.
So, my item is a wee jar of sand, all the way from Australia.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Whenever I was living out there, I lived on Coogee Beach, and it was like just the one down from Bondi.
Okay.
And I just absolutely loved it. On my way home, I thought I'll take a bit with me. But you know, you're not allowed to bring things out of Australia, like coral and all. So I had this in my pockets, walking through the airport. And just every time I want to go back to that place, I've got that wee bit of sand.
Wow.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that's it. Pride of place in your house or in your office?
That's on top of my computer every day. So, it's just that idea. So I was a backpacker sitting 2 pockets full of sand on the airplane for about 20 hours. So, yeah, that just means a lot there.
There's something about having a physical specimen. You know, you could have loads of photographs of that Coogee Beach and it wouldn't mean as much as having the physical thing there.
Actually recorded the sound before I left as well.
Okay.
So, I'll have to get back soon. Can I have those tissues over, please?
Go on ahead, Kris. Very good. Very good. No, that's great. Listen, Kris, thank you very much for coming along for this. It was a pleasure to have you on Click, Cry, Repeat. And that rounds us up for this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.